As a matter of fact, even today there is not a foundation for a study of Goethe such as a monograph or biography could provide that would be produced really in his very style. Let us see what has been done in particular instances in modern culture toward the understanding of Goethe's personality. We can, of course, only cite single examples. Hermann Grimm has, however, rightly said, "A certain Mr. Lewis has written a book, which was for some time the most famous book on Goethe. One can even say the best. It is a book treating of a personality who was supposed to have been born in Frankfurt am Main in 1749, and to have had a Frankfurt counselor for a father. He then developed and grew up in such a way that Goethe's youth was ascribed to him, along with all sorts of other things taken from Goethe. Goethe's works were attributed to him. He also traveled to Italy in the same year as Goethe, and died the same year Goethe died. This person, however, is not Goethe but a fantasy of Mr. Lewis's. Then we also have a relatively good book in which Goethe's life and creative work is described with immense industry and better than many other works on Goethe. It is filled, however, from the first to the last page with hatred and aversion. This book is by the Jesuit, Baumgartner. It is an excellent but, in fact, a Jesuitical book, but antagonistic to Goethe. At least, it is better written than the countless others on Goethe that have appeared throughout the 19th century and now on into the 20th. A great number of these works are unpalatable. One continually sneezes because the dust of the library and professor gets into one's nose. They have been written by pedants who call it Goethe. Often they have been written with pedantic pride, but they are also fusty with library dust or the air one must breathe when one guesses how often the man who is writing about Faust, for example, has opened Grimm's or some other glossary in order to decipher a word or passage, and so on. One could say, "Oh horrible, most horrible, what has been written in this field." One book, however, stands out in a quite unusual way. These are Hermann Grimm's lectures on Goethe given in the 70s at Berlin University. Grimm was, as we can see, a spirit who had the best will and the most wonderful traditions to aid him in familiarizing himself with Goethe. His book is an intelligent and excellent one that has developed right out of the Goethean atmosphere. Grimm grew up in the age when there were still Goethean traditions, but this book shows something quite remarkable. In fact, in a certain respect it is not at all a book that has developed from Goethean traditions. It is both Goethean and un-Goethean. For Hermann Grimm does not write in a Goethean style but, strangely enough, in a style that leads one to say that the book was written by an American, a German American. One can call Grimm's lectures a book written by an American but in German. In style it is American, a style in which Grimm has educated himself. As one of the most enthusiastic followers of Emerson, he has studied him, read, digested, translated him, has quite familiarized himself with him. Now Grimm finds his way into this American Emerson style so that he is complete master of it. At the same time he grows enthusiastic about it. One can see at once on reading his novel, Invincible Powers, how he is able to let everything American live on in him. Enthusiasm for what is American and at the same time a wonderful feeling of internationalism is poured out in Hermann Grimm's Goethe lectures. In spite of all this, much, very much in the spiritual life of man must come about before Goethe and similar spirits will be understood. If sometimes they are rightly understood, it must be in quite another way from that of Hermann Grimm. Once, in a conversation with him, I wished to make just a few references to the path by which one could gradually enter the spiritual world. The movement of his right arm will always remain unforgettable, a gesture of warding off. He wanted to push that aside. He created a Goethe who is simply delightful to see from outside, but one does not see into his heart. This Goethe of Grimm's, as he makes his way through historical development, as he stands there, as he moves about and comes into relation with people, as human relations flow into his works, as the contemporary world conception flows into his works, this Goethe goes past our mind's eye as a ghost who flits through the world unseen by the living. Goethe will only be understood when one has deepened Goetheanism to become spiritual science. Then, much will emerge from Goethe that he could not express himself. Goethe truly understood leads, in fact, to spiritual science, which is really developed Goetheanism. From the beginning, Goethe also understood that Christianity is a living thing. How he longed for a possible expression for the Christianizing of the modern world conception. It did not lie in his time to find it, but in the New Age spiritual science is already working to attain it. Let us take his poem, The Mysteries, Die Geheimnis, in which Brother Mark is guided to the temple where the rose cross is on the door, and let us look at the whole picture. We shall see that the Christian mood is in this fragment. The mysteries, the mood born of the feeling that the symbol of the cross becomes a picture of life through the living roses entwining it. Then, too, Goethe lets his Faust end with a Christian conception. He spoke of it to Eckermann in his old age. A time will come when, in a much more active, intense sense, one will connect with Christianity the thoughts that ring through the conclusion of Faust, although Goethe, who was inwardly modest in such things, was far from doing so himself. He was, in reality, on the way that he made his brother Mark take, to the cross encircled with roses. In this lies ultimately all that is to flow from such wisdom as was striven for by the Knights Templar. Their striving was too rapid and unsuitable to physical evolution. A longing for the full Christianizing of the treasures of wisdom concerning the cosmos and earthly evolution gradually broke through. A longing for the full Christianizing of earthly life so that suffering, pain and grief appear as the earth's cross, which then finds its comfort, its elevation, its salvation in the rose symbol of the crucifix. Repeatedly in men thus inspired, in whom lived on what was thought to have been destroyed with the burning of the Templars, in these inspired men lived ever again the ideal that in the place of what brings strife and quarrels something must appear that can bring good to earth. And this good may be pictured in the symbol of the cross in conjunction with the roses. The book, Ruins Shut, by Anastasius Grun has been given to me today by one of our members. I have here again the same verses that I read to you some time ago to confirm the fact that this mystery, which this poem also expresses, is not merely something put forward by us, but that it comes to life again and again. Anastasius Grun, the Austrian poet, composed these poems. The 8th edition appeared in 1847. In his own manner he wrote of the progress of mankind, and I will read again today the passage I read years ago as proof of the role played by the image of the rose cross in evolving humanity, that is, among those who are incarnated in the New Age. Anastasius Grun turns his gaze toward Palestine and other regions after having described how much confused fighting and quarreling has been spread over the earth. After he has seen and described much that causes fighting and strife, he, who is a great seer in a certain way, turns to a region of the earth that he describes thus. I cannot read all of it as it would take too long, but one's eye is first turned to a part of the earth where the plowshare is used. As children once were digging in a meadow, they brought a shapeless thing of iron to light. It seemed too straight, too heavy for a sickle, for plow it was too slender and too slight. With toil they dragged it home as new-found treasure. The elders see it, yet they know it not. They call the neighbors round within the circle. The neighbors see it, yet they know it not. There is an ancient greybeard, wan and sallow, whose lifetime lingers on like tale forgot into the present world of busy dealing. They show it to him, but he knows is not. Well for them all, that they have never known it, else must they weep, and still must be deplored the folly of their fathers, long since buried, for what was known by no one was a sword. Henceforth it shall but cleave the earth as plowshare, shall point the seed corn's path into the ground. The sword's new hero deeds are paeaned when sun-filled airs with song of lark resound. Once more it came to pass, that in his plowing the farmer struck what seemed a piece of stone. And as his spade unloosed the earthy covers, a structure of a wondrous shape was shown. He calls the neighbors round within the circle. They look at it, but still they know it not. Thou wise and aged one, thou wilt surely tell us? The greybeard looks at it, yet knows it not. Thus, in plowing, something was dug up, and even the aged man does not recognize it. Though known to none, yet with its ancient blessing eternal in their breast it stands upright, scatters its seed around in every roadway. A cross it was, this stranger to their sight. They saw the fight not, and its blood-stained symbol. They see alone the victory and the crown. They saw the storm not, and the lashing tempest they only see the rainbow's glistening shine. The cross will always be known, even in a region where it was already buried and drawn out of the earth as a cross of stone, where civilization has so withdrawn that an unchristian culture has developed. There, Anastasius Grun wishes to say, a cross is found and men know it in their inmost breasts, even though the oldest among them fails to recognize it through tradition. Though known to one, yet with its ancient blessing eternal in their breast it stands upright, scatters its seed around on every roadway. A cross it was, this stranger to their sight. They saw the fight not, and its blood-stained symbol. They see alone the victory and the crown. They saw the storm not, and the lashing tempest they only see the rainbow's glistening shine. The cross of stone they set up in the garden, a venerable relic strange and old. Flowers of all species lift their growth above it, while roses climbing high the cross enfold. So stands the cross weighty with solemn meaning on Golgotha, amidst resplendent sheen. Long since 'tis hidden by its wealth of roses. No more, for roses, can the cross be seen. But it is there. There is the cross. There are the roses. One only learns the meaning of history when one turns one's gaze to what lives in the spiritual and pervades human evolution, when, too, one will turn one's attention to what shows us under what auspices, under what insignia things enter world history. I think that one can feel the deeper connection between what we have characterized for later times and what has been characterized in the ideal of the Knights Templar, and their fate in the world at the beginning of the 14th century.